Am I hearing you say Democrats just need to get caught trying?
Look, what you're hearing me say, first of all, is that not everything has to go through Congress. We picked the example of student loan debt. That would affect about 43 million people. That matters. It would affect them directly and affect their families.
He will make a decision before there's an end to that pause. Right now it's been extended through August, and we have talked about how we are looking at, and he is looking at, other executive authority options he has to bring relief to people who have student loans.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about some actual policy today, as desperate times call for desperate measures. And the Biden administration is most certainly desperate, as Biden's approval rating is in the tank. I actually believe that it is the lowest that it has ever been for a president at this point in his tenure. Okay, so with that being said, Democrats need answers because they are projected to get blown out in the midterms by the Republicans. Everything has gone wrong for them, whether it comes to the border, inflation, crime, foreign policy. I can't think of one W that the Democrats have gotten since Joe Biden was elected president. I can't think of one. So again, with that being said, Biden seems to have his ace card. And this is something I've talked about anytime I've talked about this subject, which is student loan debt forgiveness. Because in order for Democrats to win elections, they have to get the far left of their base, the young progressives, to come out and vote. If they don't vote, it is highly likely that they will lose. And the Democrats know that. So now it seems that they're trying to pull out their ace card in order to get them to go to the polls and vote in November, as Biden reportedly is seriously considering student loan debt forgiveness. Now, keep in mind, guys, up until this point, despite making the campaign promise to forgive student loan debt, Biden has refused to do so. Now, the progressives have said, listen, you don't have to do this legislatively. You can just do it through executive fiat, right? And Biden has resisted. And I think the reason why he has resisted is because of this very moment right here, where if they get desperate, they have that in their back pocket as something that he could do in order to try to excite the base. And it looks like that might happen. So I want to talk about this, but first, let's read a little bit about this, and then I'm going to get into my opinion on it. President Biden signaled to House Democrats this week that he is seriously considering taking action to forgive student loan debt on a large scale, according to congressional aides and others familiar with the discussions. Following a Monday meeting with the president at the White House, members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus said they felt confident that Mr. Biden is warming to calls from progressive Democrats to take executive action to erase at least some of the debt held by borrowers with federal student loans. Mr. Biden didn't detail his plans, but responded positively when lawmakers pushed him to forgive $10,000 in student debt, the People said, suggesting they would be happy with his final decision. He also indicated he is open to further extending the current pause on student loan payments, which is set to expire on August 31st. Okay, so how do you interpret this? Allegedly, he suggested that they would be happy with his final decision when they pushed him to forgive $10,000 in student debt, right? Which is kind of the same thing that Trump does when they ask him about whether or not he's going to run for president in 2024. He said, you're going to be happy with my final decision, which is basically him saying, yeah, I'm going to do that. Again, this is what this sounds like, okay? The president told the lawmakers that he was weighing the timing of any announcement and wanted to make sure it didn't contribute to inflation, one of the people said. Well, I mean, here's the thing. If the Democrat argument is true, right, for forgiving student loan debt, which is that, well, you know, if we forgive this debt, then they're going to go spend the money in other places, right? Instead of paying for student loan debt, they're going to go spend the money on other things, which, I mean, hey, at this point, you know, student loan debt payments are paused. So, I mean, I guess they're technically spending the money now, which could be contributing to inflation, right? If anything, maybe this pause that you have is actually contributing to inflation, right? Maybe you need to think about that. Maybe you need to restart the payments, okay? Maybe that's what you should do. Because the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Mr. Chuck Schumer, who also wants to forgive student loan debt, is trying to convince us that repealing the Trump tax cuts, aka raising taxes, is going to help us with inflation.
If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the Trump tax cuts and raise rates. No Republican is ever going to do that. So the only way to get rid of inflation is through reconciliation.
So again, according to that logic, why in the world would you forgive student loan debt? You actually should be making people pay again, because again, according to Democrats, paying more taxes, paying more money to the federal government is going to help ease inflation, right? Again, I find it funny how this logic works for them when raising taxes, but it doesn't work when it comes to restarting student loan debt payments. And that's how you know that this whole student loan debt relief thing, it's not about economics anymore. It's not about stimulating the economy anymore. It's not about any of that. It's really just about getting votes, right? They're literally trying to buy votes. That's what they're trying to do. Some Democrats believe the issue could help motivate young voters and other progressives to go to the polls in November. Though loan forgiveness also has the potential to anger voters who have paid off their loans, never took on debt, or don't believe the government should step in to help current borrowers. Earlier this month, the Biden administration extended through August 31st the pause on payments of federal student loans. Payments and interest accrual have been suspended for borrowers with federal student loans since March 13, 2020. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. has extended the pause on payments several times amid pressure from prominent Democrats to offer relief to the public. About 40 million people owe around 1.6 trillion in federal student debt, which makes up around 90% of student debt outstanding. Borrowers with private loans aren't eligible for the pause in payments, though some lenders and servicers have offered flexibility to borrowers who ask to suspend payments. All right, so let's go ahead and get into my opinion on this. As somebody with student loan debt, okay, I'm against this. And the reason why I'm against it is because I am principled on this issue. At the end of the day, I went to school and I took out debt to go to school, and I need to pay that debt back, right? If you have a debt and you use that money, right, that you got to get a product or service, then you need to pay for it. And when you, as the federal government, comes in and say, hey, you know what? We're not going to make it so you have to pay this back anymore. What type of behavior does that incentivize, right? It incentivizes people to say, hey, you know what? I don't have to pay my debts, right? The government's just going to come in and forgive it. And what does that do for the people that actually did pay back the debt, right? People that have been paying their student loans, that have paid back the debt in full that they owe to the government, to the people, to the taxpayers, are they going to get a refund for the fact that they paid student loan debt? And if so, how far back are you going to go? Are you going to go back to people that borrowed money all the way back in the 90s? Are they going to get a refund? Again, why in the world is it that Democrats always propose policies that reward bad behavior, that reward people who don't want to take personal responsibility for their own actions? It really doesn't make sense. And I've never heard any Democrat answer the question of, okay, let's say you do forgive student loan debt. Well, when does it end? Because once you forgive student loan debt one time, then they're going to expect you to continue to do it. And you've already shown that you're willing to do it. You've already set that precedent, so they're going to keep expecting it, just like the stimulus checks, right? But see, the problem is that you're not actually addressing the root cause of why we have this debt in the first place, which is the fact that we have an inefficient, bloated, and bureaucratic higher education system that is being fed by the fact that the federal government is willing to give out all this free money for kids to go to school to get a degree that does not have a positive return on investment. These colleges simply are not doing their jobs, okay? These degrees are overvalued. Guys, listen to this. A new survey from intelligent.com found that more than half of college graduates over the age of 25 do not work in the field of their study, okay? The survey also found that 25% of respondents earn less than $30,000 a year, while approximately 1 out of 7 earn less than $15,000 a year. Now, the federal poverty threshold is $14,000 a year, guys. So basically, almost 1 out of 7 people with a college degree is living in poverty, okay? So again, somebody make it make sense to me in regards to what the return on investment is for a degree, and why in the world is the federal government giving out loans and free money for people to go to school and to get these degrees that are only going to earn them $30,000 a year. See, here's the thing. All degrees are not like this, right? In the ideal world, okay, if the federal government is going to give out money for people to go to school, it is for them to go to school to get degrees that guarantee they're going to get jobs in high-paying fields that will most likely mean that they will be able to pay back the money that they borrowed from the federal government. Okay, but that's not what's happening here. We're giving out loans for anything, right? Any old college that you want to go to, any degree that you want to get, even if you're going to this woke for-profit private school where you're going to get a degree in gender studies, okay, you're going to rack up $200,000 in debt to get a degree that's going to pay you $30,000 a year. The government is paying for it just because they want people to get degrees. And these degrees have no value to them. They are absolutely worthless, okay? That's not all of them, but a lot of them are. And that is part of the reason why the cost of college has been going up every single year, outpacing inflation, because the federal government is just willing to fund it, right? They're willing to fund anything these colleges want, okay? Even if these colleges aren't necessarily providing a positive return on investment, even though they actually really shouldn't exist in a free market system, it doesn't matter because we have socialism going on here, right? That's what's happening. It's being funded by the taxpayer. There's no requirement for these schools that are going to produce college graduates. They're going to get good jobs and good fields. They're going to make a lot of money to be able to pay the money back. There's no requirement for that. Doesn't matter. And see, another part of the whole student loan debt forgiveness thing that the left doesn't want to talk about is that there are a large amount of borrowers, right? There's a large amount of money that has been borrowed by people who actually can pay the money back, like doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, okay? People like that accrue a whole bunch of debt going to school because they have to get advanced degrees. They have a lot of the student loan debt as well. And if you was forgive student loan debt, that would be like a handout to the rich, right? These are people making six figures, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. Democrats are like, hey, let's give you a tax cut. Let's give you a stimulus check, because that's effectively what it would do. But they don't want to tell you that, though. They don't want to tell you that student loan debt forgiveness is secretly a handout to the rich. It really is. So at the end of the day, as long as there's no proposals to address the real issue on why we have so much student loan debt in the first place, which is the federal government willing to literally fund any degree that you want to get, regardless of whether or not it's a positive return on investment. In the fact that we're pushing kids into this system, this very inefficient system out of high school, instead of sending them to trade schools, or better yet, preparing them in high school to get jobs in the real world. And this societal expectation that we have from a lot of these corporations that you need to have a bachelor's degree, when bachelor's degrees are basically useless, okay? As long as we don't address those issues, we will always have student loan debt. And it will always be an issue because we're not actually addressing the root problem. And forgiving student loan debt really is just kicking the ball down the road. Well, let's just forgive it today, and then you're going to rack up that debt again, and then guess what? People be whining and complaining, saying that we need more student loan debt forgiveness. Again, these Democrats, man, at this point, they're so desperate, they're trying to buy votes. That's exactly what this is. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.